Mr. Kris Verstockt， 我们欢迎英属微金群岛商奎艾特台湾分公司的执行总监 Mr. Kris Verstockt.
Nope. Okay, this is working. Good. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here. And TDC, of course, and Taipei, thank you for allowing me to speak today. What I'm going to talk with you today about is a little bit, it's actually three topics. The first topic is some misunderstandings and misconceptions about design and the weird breed called designers. The second part of it is about patterns and linear thinking versus design, how that relates to each other. And that's some questions you as companies should be asking yourself in order to stay competitive. So without further ado, I'll go ahead with that. If I know how to go. Yeah, okay. So first let me give you some insight about design. This is going to go fairly quick. But you know, there are some misunderstandings, maybe even myths about what the breed designer is and what we do as people. So I thought, at least from Create's perspective, that I touch on that aspect to give you some, hopefully some insight. First of all, designers are not artists. We don't do things because we are emotionally in such a need that we have to express ourselves. That are artists. Designers work according to briefs with, I know that Ralph said no target markets, but with a market in mind, and we have a certain thing that we follow in order to get to a final result. Sometimes I even have to tell my designers that. So what that means is that actually sometimes a designer needs to design something that he or she finds aesthetically not so pleasing, because he or she is not the target market. And that is very different than what an artist does. An artist designs or develops things out of a need to express himself from an emotional point of view, maybe. On a side note, when I was making this presentation, you see that I've got this guy here with a frame around. This is Rubens. He comes from my country, coincidentally. Actually, I thought when I was putting this together, probably guys like Rubens and Rembrandt, they were the forefathers of design. How do I deduct that? Because they had to work according to very strict briefs too. You know, they worked, most of their work was for the Catholic Church, and they were under very strict control what they could and could not put on a drawing. Probably you could compare it a little bit with what designers do. Oh yeah, I'm going wrong. Second one, designers need to immerse themselves in all things design. They are a bit strange and they are designy and they live on cloud design. Wrong. Well, we are probably a little bit strange, that's true, but it's for different reasons than being designy. So we look at the world slightly different. We try to find answers everywhere and in everything in order to apply them, in order to come up with innovation. So sometimes we act out of a bit weird to the normal work, but it's because we're actually working. So a good example, a few weeks ago I was shopping with my wife. We walk into a store and there's some mannequins, you know, those girls that they used to dress clothes, and standing in the corner, and apparently it was change of season, and they weren't wearing any clothes. So okay, my wife shops in the store, we walk out of the store, and she's a little bit angry and chuffed and what did I do wrong? So she goes, you really have to do that? And I said, what did I do? Well, you go in that store and you're looking at these naked women, their breasts, which I wasn't, you know. I was looking at a hinge mechanism of an arm that I could apply in some project somewhere else. So sometimes we look strange, but that's because we do strange things and we're thinking differently than most people when they walk into a store. Designers need to be generalists. We need to look at the real world and find solutions there. So we need to look between the lines, we need to find the nuances, we need to find patterns, and that we apply in our business. How do we do that? By reading, reading generalist books like that, you know, Freakonomics, an excellent book. Malcolm Gladwell, excellent work. It's very generalist, it's about people, it's about the world, how people react. We look at the market. We look at people on the street, we look how they act, how they interact. In the shopping mall. The MRT, as example, the MRT is the best focus group study you can have for any electronics firm in the world that has handheld devices. Why? Because you see real people using these devices without them knowing that you are checking what they're doing. How do they take it out? Where do they put it? What do they do with it? This is what designers do all the time. Airports, another excellent place to find out how people use their notebooks. And there's some overseas guys here, you know, it's like the race to the wall, the race to the outlet in order to plug their notebook in and do some work in between flights and try to see that they can save their battery power for the plane. That's extremely interesting to a designer. And we see products in that. We read magazines like Time magazine. Harvard Business Review. You would not believe, I have a subscription to Harvard Business Review. A designer? You know, that's not what the world thinks. You know, they think we design stuff. So that's really not true. BBC, there is somebody from CNN here who talked to me earlier. We look at these things because they are all channels to us in order to create ideas. Does not mean that we don't like designy stuff. We do. It does not mean that designy stuff is wrong, but it's not the only thing that we look at. Designers work in those super cool offices where there is a lot of games and toys around, and they stand half day in front of a very sophisticated espresso machine in which they talk, mostly in flip-flops and shorts, and then sometimes they have an idea, they sketch a little bit, and puff, the idea comes, and that's what designers do. Actually, people say, I did my own house, and I designed my garden. I'm a designer, I can design. Wrong. You know, when you do your plumbing and you fix your plumbing at home, you're not going to call yourself an engineer. But we understand from engineering that it's a complex process. Why we see, oh, they have to go through these steps, you know, and people understand, okay, engineering is difficult, I cannot do that, this guy studied for it. When it comes to design, everybody gets an opinion suddenly. So if I can use an example, in a meeting room, engineer is there, designer is there, engineer will go, oh, we need to add a 2-degree draft angle. Why? Because then we can pull it better out of the tool. We're going to make the plastic 2 millimeter thick so there are no flow lines, and everybody in the meeting room is going to go, yeah, okay, that's true, he's an engineer, he studied for that, of course, you know, he knows what he's talking about. Then it's the designer's turn, yeah, okay, he goes to the front and says, we think we're going to make it in blue. Whoa, everybody has an opinion about that. And that's a problem. Designers do things for reasons, right? So not everybody can be a designer. I'll get into linear design a little bit later. I keep not getting the ergonomics of this. Humor. So this does not help us because we do use humor when we design. Humor is an excellent tool to, you know, declog the mind, to get things flowing, to get the juices going. So it seems that these guys are not working, you know, they're laughing in a meeting room, you know, I can do that. So that does not help us. Actually, creative thinking is something very difficult. There is no precedent. There is nothing in the past you can go to and say, oh, they did it like that the last time, so we're going to do it the same this time, hence we will have a good result. If you want to innovate, you cannot look at last time. So this is very scary business. So even in my teams, people panic, my designers panic on a regular basis. You know, an example, the last 2 years, you can imagine we've been doing a lot of iPad accessories for some bizarre reason. So my designers go, when I come back and say, oh, we're going to have to do an iPad accessory project for customer A, they panic. They go, but we've done so many iPads already, we're not going to come up with new ideas. Lucky enough, every time we do, and I'll talk a little bit later why that is. So humor is for us a good tool to not to be too serious for something that's scary and has no answers at the beginning of the process. That is scary business, you know, if you need to make your money that way. So also in meetings, when I feel that my designers are getting too serious in brainstorming or in ideation, I'll crack a joke. And they'll crack a joke back and people go, oh, I've got a stupid idea. Oh, I got a stupid idea. And the third, oh, I got a stupid idea. Wait a minute, that's not a stupid idea. That's a good idea. And we will work with that. And because of humor, we have something that was very unexpected happening there. And that's very good for us because that means we are innovating. See if I get it right now. Yes. So, what is a good designer? Many people will say a good designer is somebody that can package what the consumer wants. Wrong. A good designer is somebody who understands what the consumer needs, and the consumer does not know himself. Why? If the consumer would be thinking about it, I can guarantee you 10 other companies are thinking about it. So you need to find out, as a designer, what the consumer himself does not know yet. This is a little bit complicated, but that's what we do. So we need to go beyond what the consumer is asking. This is going to go the whole time. It's not my, you know, it's not mine, so that's, but okay. So a good designer unearths what consumers can't tell him. How does he do that? He looks at the needs, the motivations, he studies the behavioral patterns. I already explained it a little bit before. He looks at barriers and drivers of change. It's all about observing, most of it. So everybody thinks design is about designing a beautiful rendering or doing art. It's mostly about observing different peoples. And preferably different peoples in their natural habitat, a little bit like the zoo. But we do that, you know, we tend to look at how people behave when they're the most relaxed or when they're the most normal. They have an empathy for what other people do. So ask myself, and probably that's a side effect of being a designer, people ask me, what music do you like? I don't know. I like some rock, I like some house, I like some classic music. Why? Because I look at all different target groups and I tend to see in every one a little thing that I like and dislike. So it's a bit confusing, but it is what it is. And then we pull different disciplines together, again, being generalists, and try to innovate. So a good designer needs to find out what your competitor doesn't know or doesn't already know. Very important. So if you ask consumers, and you'll hear me repeat that quite a few times, what do you need? They'll say what they need now. And if the consumer comes up with it, guaranteed your competition is thinking in the same direction. And then 9 months later, when the development process is over, you both launch the same product at the same time. Not very good. That was quickly a little bit about, because I get a lot of people thinking about design in the wrong way. So that was a kind of a lead to give you a little bit of an insight about what we actually are not. And I hope that made things not too confusing. Next thing I wanted to talk about is about the development process. So I start here with a small joke. This is the brief from the client. Client says, I want that. Designer goes off and makes it look like this. Then the design director, a guy like me, goes to the client and, oh man, you're going to get the best thing ever, sells it very well. Then, the engineer says, too time mafan. Just let's make something straight. Simple, right? Then the roller coaster development process, and that's what you end up with in a store. Now, lucky this is not true, but it's a very good analogy of what can go wrong in the development process. So I thought it would be fun to bring that in here. So, when I talk about the development process, I want to talk about linear thinking and processes. The development process is very linear. Now, I'll show with a few slides. Life is very linear. You start in kindergarten. And when in kindergarten you start, the drawing class, yeah, we all can draw with the crayons. Teacher tells you, a tree is a little blob with a sticky, point period. You want to draw a bird? The bird is a V in the sky. Guy wants to creative draws another bird. Teacher will go, no, that's how you draw a bird, a V in the sky. These are patterns. We are taught patterns. Then you go to high school, and then you learn linear disciplines. 1 and 1 is 2. A plus B is C. So every time you have A, and every time you have B, you will get C. That's what we are learned. Then you go to university. And they say, you need to look at past case studies in order to solve your problems. You need to look at precedent. That's linear thinking. Look at analogies. And when you're at home, be organized. Follow the rules of the house, and then you get rewards from mom and dad. Do it structurally. And I'm not saying that these things are bad. That's not the case. But you'll understand a little bit later that linear thinking and explaining design is very difficult. So, in Taiwan at least, we live in a very engineering environment. Engineering and the engineering process is very linear. And it has to be. There's nothing wrong with that. You start with steps. You go through the steps. Poof. That's how you do it. Good teams stress on complex phases in order to keep your costs down and in order to stay on schedule. And the teams that do that the best are the most successful companies in Taiwan. So very linear. We spend our time, verification, validation. This is what you need to do when you are in Taiwan. Allow me again, I'm still fighting with this. Even designers explain design very linear. This is actually a slide from my company presentation. And what do? I go to the client and I explain this beautiful linear process. We have market research, idea sketching, fine-tuning, concept sketch proposals, 3D proposals, appearance model. Ta-da! Your product is ready. Nice and linear, And if you probably go to the internet and look at other design studios, I don't know if process is like that, they will explain it's very linear too. Go through these steps and eureka, you have design. Well, sadly enough, it is not like that. Well, I'll explain that with the next slides. But it makes it complicated because you may have the need to select design sources, and they all explain the same linear process. And I'll try a little bit in the next slides to explain what they should be explaining to you. The creative process is non-linear. It's very messy in the beginning. It's very unexpected and very difficult to explain. So it's about reading here in this part. It gets linear once you start to the end phase of a design process. But here, very, very messy. And it's reading between the lines, you know, eureka moments. Oh, suddenly something pops up, and yeah, that's. But how do you explain that in a process? How do you explain that to a customer? Oh, something's going to pop up. Don't worry, you know, it'll come. That's a very panicky situation for us who think very linear, right? So, but that's how it's done, huh? And we see insights from one idea into another, and then we start combining things. So, the reality, sad for love, is very messy. And if you are linear, if you go through steps in the beginning of a design process, you stifle design because you worry about the steps too much. Oh, we need to make 8 idea sketches and then 3 concept proposals, and I'm wrong. You need to look at the big picture. You need one good idea. And how you get there is almost every project, it's a little bit different. It's just a little bit different than the last time. So at Create, what I keep this bit very messy. My designers complain to me, yeah, you don't really give a brief. You know, you say, oh, we're going to go that direction, and then I send them off. And even I don't know the path at the beginning of a design process. But it's once I start seeing ideations, see sketches, see ideas come together, and then it develops into a path, we conceptualize, we do 3D, and then finally you will get a very linear process later. So many people ask me to Create is growing. We have 3 offices in Taiwan, we have an office in the US. How do you keep consistency in your design process? How do you manage? And what we find out is that it's actually here that management is needed the most. To, one, get them go crazy in the beginning, and then pull the right things together and send them off. And this is fine-tuning. So here, I am very much in the background. I'm still there, and I check if things are going according to schedule, you know, linear, to process, if it's the right quality. But I don't really need to be hands-on anymore. And that's how we manage that. Design is also a little bit similar to science, so to bring it in perspective. There's a big difference though. In science, you fail a lot, you take your time failing, and sooner or later you will get it. In design, you gotta fail a lot, but you better fail fast in order to get success early in the process. And again, that's that non-linear thinking. Who cares if we make 10 sketches or 12 sketches? That's the failing part and the prototyping part. You have to fail in order to make it, in order to innovate. In the linear process of manufacturing, what? You shall not fail. Under any condition, you shall not miss the deadline. We have to fail in the beginning of the process in order to be original. Very different thinking. So, look at this guy, Edison made 10,000 prototypes of his lamp before he made it work. And he famously says, you know, those 10,000 times that I was trying, I learned much more than once the lamp was working. I was like, okay, it works, I can walk away, did my job, next. Dyson, you know, the vacuum cleaners, made 2,000 prototypes before he had it right. As a design studio, if we are lucky, we can make one. You know, if the client says, okay, you can make a prototype, and then that has to work immediately, or we're in a lot of trouble. For us, the best case scenario is free flow exploration, where the client is open to unintended results. That's where we can really innovate. So a lot of our projects, they already give us the answer. And I understand that for many projects that's needed. I need a notebook at the end of the process, point period. Don't you come and show me anything else, and that's okay, I understand it. But there is some projects that you as companies should do, where you say to your design sources, this is our technology, this is what we are good at. What can we do with that? You know, and don't expect an end result. And that's when you start innovating. For instance, we have a very good relationship with a company called Best Buy, not well known in Taiwan, very big company in the US. They have 1,200 stores, very big client of us. Now the beauty of Best Buy is they have no manufacturing arm. They don't have any technology that they need to listen to. So they walk into our meeting room and say, I want to get into that business. Okay, iPad accessories. Go away and show me something at the end. That's when true innovation happens. Because we then really cannot, by any block or hindrance, come up with innovative products. Now, oh no, you know, that's a great idea, but we don't do that. That's not our technology. Sorry, can't do it. It's a great idea though. I love it, but no, that's not what we do. So obviously, through relationships like that, we can be very innovative. Wait, I'm doing it again. Creative process. You could compare the creative process to telling a joke. You know, there's similarity there. I know, again, I'm being funny, but that's what it is. A joke starts with a linear process. a guy walks into a bar. Then something unexpected happens, the punchline. But in hindsight, the punchline relates to the storyline. But it's the same with innovation. You know, it starts linear, something unexpected will happen, but in hindsight, it's very logical. It looks like, oh, that makes sense. These things are called the iPad, the iPod, you know, and I don't want to use Apple too much, but that's the reality of things. So, the best design resources are teams that can do this, that can manage this creative process the best. Not the linear process, the creative process, that are affluent and efficient in doing this time and again. Not, oh, I do 10 sketches, 10 concepts, that's all relative. It's being creative that is important. So that doesn't make it easy, of course, because we're all very linear. Remember, you know, kindergarten, high school, even me, you know, until I started studying design, I was taught very linear as a process. So, and then these guys come in and, you know, they try to sell design to you. It's very difficult to find out which is a good design studio and which is not. So you guys gotta find the resource that you feel they're gonna be able to manage that, you know, messy, creative, unexpected thing in the beginning of the process. Those are the guys that are gonna give me the best bang for my buck, if I can say it that way. Problem with that is, that works also a little bit against very big in-house design teams. Why? Not because, you know, big in-house designers are bad designers. Not at all, actually. But in-house design teams in big companies, they tend to have to follow a linear process. Because in order to run a big company, you need to have processes, or you can't control what all your divisions are doing. And they need to be very linear in order to be cost effective. And then you have those designers which are supposed to think non-linear and creative in the beginning. Doesn't work in a very big company. So what will happen in a big company is the manager from another division comes and says, I need your ideas by Wednesday. You have 3 days. What if your innovation comes the 4th day? You missed out on $1 billion business because of 24 hours. That makes no sense. It doesn't mean you have to go, woo-hoo, party time, you know. But it is non-linear in the beginning. You can't just sit at a table and go, okay, it's all going to come out now within those 3 days that, you know, the big company set me to do. So how do good big organizations solve that problem is they have a big design team in-house, and then they go outsource for creative thinking, to give new light, for people to give some freedom and say, you know guys, you know what, you don't have to finish this project in 3 weeks. We're going to give you a month and a half. But you better impress me at the end. And that's what good big companies do. I'm going to give this one more go. No. Okay. Yeah, sorry for that, but it's not the most user-friendly one. Questions your company should be asking yourself. So this gets a little bit down to business. So most of the time, companies are looking too much for the right answer. Maybe you're not asking the right question. You know, something that you could think about. We all know that business is not as usual. Systems don't work. You know, the financial system, we all know that doesn't work very well. You know, Medicare, transport systems are not working very well. Companies are in trouble. We just heard about the free fall of Nokia this morning. You know, it's not business as usual anymore. Sony has some troubles. In the electronics industry, there's not much to win from the bottom line anymore. You can't cut any cost anymore. You know, we're already very, very lean already. So you better start innovating. At the same time, the new consumer is a very different beast. You know, he wants unexpected but relevant ideas. That's what they're looking for. In the good old days, consumers looked at pricing, makes sense, I can afford it, I'll buy it. New consumer doesn't do that. New consumer says, I want total value. It needs to make sense to me. Even if I can afford it. And even but it doesn't really make sense to my lifestyle, I'm not going to buy it. Sorry. Old consumers accepted solutions. Big brands used to tell us, this is a good product, you need this. We all went, oh yeah, okay, I'll go and buy it. That's the old consumer. New consumer create solutions. They want to be part of the equation. They like companies that give them the start, but then they themselves can manage and create their own solutions with those products. Old consumer thought, what's in it for me? New consumer is a little bit more socially involved, and as Ralph said, we need to think about all these things because they will stay with us from now onward. The environment and carbon footprint, they want to know what's in it for we, society. What's in it for the big, you know, what's more than socially acceptable. Hence, these two relate to each other. More stuff is better. That's the generation I come from. You know, New consumers seeking experiences. They want to talk. They're not seeking products. They want products to help them have new experiences. So they go on Facebook. You seldomly see young people on Facebook brag about the new toy they bought. But they'll brag about, I used my new mobile phone in the bar and I took pictures from the scene. That is what they will do, because they're sharing experiences much more than products. Old consumer trusted, what's on the box colors. Healthy snack. Oh, okay, it must be a healthy snack. New consumer doesn't do that anymore. They will look at the ingredients and say, what? 300 calories per bite? That's not a healthy snack. I don't want this. Old consumers used to be receivers of brands. The brand told them what they were supposed to look at when they looked at brands. New consumer does not do that anymore. Big companies still tend to tell them, look, da-da-da, we are Coca-Cola, we're here for happy and joy and this. But then people on the internet start talking about it and they start building their own vision of that brand. A very good exercise, I didn't do it here because the pictures get very graphic, but you can check what people think about McDonald's. I can tell you, it's not what McDonald's thinks their brand looks at. It gets very, very graphic very quickly. And that's the new reality. And then last but not least, this did not exist even. The old consumer, hey, if you want something and it's good, you gotta pay for it. That's normal. New consumer said, yeah, I want something, I want at least 50% to be free. Free, 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 free. I get everything for free. And we have to thank that to the internet. They get so much for free that you really have a better, good solution, or then I don't want to pay for it. They can get it for free on the internet. So they're used to that behavior. This is a very demanding customer. So that changes the whole perspective. Oh yeah, I'm doing it again. So many companies are stuck in their ways. And what I mean by that is that when they innovate, they tend to innovate very small increments. Right? They do a little bit better than the last one. They don't go overboard, right? So I'll give you some examples, some good, some bad, some ugly. Definitely a bad one. Coke said, okay, we need a new product. This is in 1990 something. We need a new product. Good idea. Let's develop new Coke. They almost went bankrupt. Coca-Cola was in financial trouble because they invented new Coke. Why? Nobody wanted new Coke. Everybody was very happy with the Coke they had. Hence today, the younger people here will not know that, classic Coke. They're still struggling today to remind everybody it's not new, it's a classic one. It's the same as the last one we had before. Because people did not want any change. Same with McDonald's. McDonald's said, we need new customers. The affluent user. We're going to make a burger for rich people. Yeah, that makes no sense, that makes no sense at all. And then they said, and we're going to market it exactly the same as what we do with other McDonald's stuff, with coupons. Affluent people using coupons to go buy burgers. It made no sense whatsoever, and they had to take that out. So, other people innovate by mistake. Before I continue, is there anybody from Motorola in the room? No Motorola people? Okay, I can speak freely then. Razer. What happened with Razer was that the design team worked with an engineering team somewhere offline and came up with Razer. They showed it to management. The manager said, well, a sleek phone, but it's a bit out there, guys. This is not what Motorola stands for. We're not going to do this product. As a design exercise, we very much like what you guys did. We appreciate it. We're not going to launch Razer. The team luckily had the balls to say, on the sideline behind our other projects, we're going to continue developing Razer, and then, we'll try to put it in later in the process. It got killed twice by management. It's their most successful phone ever. They still today have trouble in their phone division to copy that. Why? Because it happened by mistake to begin with. That's part of the problem. Caterpillar is not Motorola is a good company too, but it's a good example. Caterpillar, good company, they make heavy crane equipment. Heavy cranes and this and that, and their customers kept complaining to them. When we're on the work site, we don't have good boots. Sneakers break and they're not waterproof. Normal shoes, they don't do it for us. So Caterpillar said, I have an idea. Whenever they buy a crane, we'll provide, as a customer service, a gadget, we'll provide them shoes. We give them away to them. Today, Caterpillar clothing line is one of their successful revenue generators in the company. By mistake. Let me talk a little bit about Amtrak. Amtrak is an American rail company. Amtrak was one of the most powerful American companies in the beginning of the 19th century. Big company, controlled half of America. And then they invented the car. And then they invented the plane and the bus and so forth. And Amtrak's business, no, I did not altogether out. Calm. Okay, so Amtrak business declined. The better the car get, the more business went down for the train industry. And Amtrak was in a lot of problem. Now, for Americans here, same happened in Europe. But I use the Amtrak story because I know it a little bit. Now, why did Amtrak fail? Because Amtrak asked themselves the wrong question. So when you ask Amtrak, what business are you in? We're in the railroad business. We lay 10 miles of track this day. That's what we do. We're railroad people. And what Amtrak should have asked themselves, we're not railroad people. We're in the business of transporting people. If they would have made that decision, we're in the business of transporting people, not railroad, they would have gotten into the car industry. When the Ford T was developed, it was a very small company. Amtrak could have bought that company on a Sunday afternoon. Would have been nothing for them. Same with the plane industry. They could have bought the whole thing. But Amtrak said, that's not what we do. We don't transport people. We make railroads. And that was their biggest mistake. So it's very important that you ask yourself as a company, what do we do? What is our core value? And most of the time it's something on a more high level than we make modems, or we make mobile phones, or we make notebooks. It's one level higher. And once you get that answer right, you're gonna be able to innovate and create new product lines. GM. CEO, I don't know if you know a company called Telsa. Telsa is a car company that made the first electric sports car. Goes from 1 to 100 kilometers an hour below 4 seconds. This is a very successful company, especially on the sidelines by the Hollywood crowd. Because this allows them to be arrogant and, good for the environment at the same time. They're like, I still have a sport. They were kind of going, okay, I'll buy a Prius because everybody's looking. Actually, what I want is a Ferrari and I can afford it. And I'm going to buy a Prius because that's, politically correct for me to do. Now they're all buying this car. And when this happened, the CEO of GM said, how is this possible? When I asked my top engineering team, when is the electric sports car going to come out, they started laughing. So, that's at least 10 years away. And this small company was able to do it behind our back now. And the funny bit is, none of them are car guys. They're all electrical and mechanical engineers. None of them came from the car industry. So sometimes companies are so focused on what they're doing that they don't see it coming, the competition. Lastly, on this slide, you also need to know on a very high level what business are we in, a service industry, and you've heard it before, Ralph talking about the service industry, or are we a price-oriented business? That's not, come on, Kris, it's easy. No, most people are wrong. And what I mean by that, if you're going to McDonald's, go in, get to the front, get me a Big Mac. You get your Big Mac, very good price for value. 5 minutes later, Big Mac there, eat it, 15 minutes, you're out. You can't go into McDonald's and say, yeah, I want a Big Mac, but can you take out the tomato? And you know what? I don't like that sauce. Even not a sauce that I can use. You can't do that. McDonald's is very efficient at this is what you get, one thing only. It's good value, good price. That's what we're good at. Then, I don't know if you know Roots Chris, the other side of a restaurant. You walk into Roots Chris and we'll go, good afternoon, sir. Can I get you to your table? Move your chair away, put you down. How are we doing? Want a glass of water before we serve the burger? Burger, medium rare, yeah. On the side, salad, want something? Some pepper, sir. That's the service industry. You need to make a decision. What are we? Most companies end up being in the middle. And then they don't understand that when they have a difficult customer, I'm not dealing with that. But when you're in the service industry, you got to deal with that. That's what you do. That's what your strength is. When you're McDonald's, you can say, go next door with Cruise, they'll service you. This is what you get here. And that's what you need as companies. So some things that, you need to think about aligning your business strategy. It's very strange, but not many companies know about that. I'll at the end of the presentation, I'll go very quickly. So, wait a minute. Up is down, down is up. Okay. It's not about making products. It's about experiences. I'm having one right now at the moment. Major experience. It is. So Apple is successful not because Apple makes beautiful products and they've got good interfaces. Apple is successful because the experience the consumer gets. Mainly free platforms. I can build my own product. Apple is more successful not because for the hardware, but having iTunes, having free apps, having people all over the world writing stuff that I can tune my iPhone and my iPad to what I want. This is the biggest problem Sony has at the moment. Sony still wants to control all data. We do it ourselves. You know, and we make games for our PS3. You can't make games, or somebody we know very well can do it. Not you guys, not the public. And that's what they're doing wrong at the moment. I hope there's nobody of Sony here. You know, otherwise I'm going to run after this presentation very quick. But that's their biggest problem at the moment, is they're not understanding the new customer well enough. So if you make products, which 99% of Taiwanese people do, right? If you make products, you better start thinking, what experience am I making? Many of my clients still go, hey, it works. Yeah, and we made it work. Yeah, and every telephone works. That's not what you're doing anymore. So what do you do different, and what do you do create for the end consumer to like it a lot? Yeah, I got it. The end of my presentation, I got it right. So, a little bit on Taiwan. What should Taiwanese companies start asking themselves in order to start this process? First of all, you should ask yourselves, do we have a corporate innovation strategy? Do we really think about this? Most of the answers I get is, yes, we want to triple our revenue in 3 years. That's not an innovation strategy, that's a dream. We all want to triple our revenue in 3 years if we can, right? And if you have an innovation strategy, who is making the decisions about innovations? When I interact with Taiwanese companies and we present an innovation, I see kind of 3 things that can happen. We present them with an innovation, the team looks at it and they go, okay, let's get people together, get the receptionist, get 3 people from that division, 5 people from, and let's vote. Which is the best design? You're not the target group 9 times out of 10. You're not the person who's going to buy it. So it's very, very dangerous to say, oh, we're going to vote democratically what is the best product out there. A step up from that is just the project manager decides, oh, I like this the most. That's what we're going to do. Again, the project manager is not necessarily, or the chance is big, he's not the target market. Even worse is the CEO, big boss. There's nothing worse than a 65-year-old billionaire making a decision on a phone for an 18-year-old guy that likes rap music and bungee jumping. Makes no sense whatsoever. But it's like that. I like pink. Okay, we'll do it in pink then. That's what happens a lot. Another step up is we'll ask our customers. Most of the time, your clients, they look at the here and now. So they'll give you advice on the here and now. And if they give you advice, or something more than that, they say, okay, this is the product you're making. Oh, maybe you can add this, and maybe you can add that, and maybe you can add that. Why? Because at the time you're showing it to them, there is no dollar term attached to the idea. They don't know yet how much it's going to cost. And then it seems logical, add features, right? Because they're not paying for them yet. You do that. And then you walk in here, we made a mobile phone, it cost $560 US. What? You said that's what you wanted. I don't want to pay for that. It's just to hang up and answer a phone call. I don't want to do that. And, the problem is also, and Ralph talked a bit about features. What's happening today, because at least firmware features and software features are cheap. So people tend to add them. But you end up with a product that's good at nothing. And are there Swiss people here? Austrian, right? Not Swiss. Swiss? Okay, you're going to hate me. The Swiss knife. The Swiss knife is good at nothing. It has a lot of functionality, but it doesn't do really one thing very well. You want to cut with a little knife. At least with my hands, I can't do it. I can't use it. So if you put too much features in your product, you water it down, and people don't know why they need it anymore. So back on track. So you need somebody in your corporation that takes decisions on innovations. That can be a group of people. That can be, normally it's never one guy, but it's a group of people that you assign across the company to say, look, they are making the final call. Not the secretary, not a guy on the floor, not even me as a designer. I don't know your target, I don't know your channels, I don't know a lot of things that are needed to be done in order to get your product in stores. Right. So finally, and most people when they talk to designers, they go, come on, give it to me, man. What do I have to do next? Just tell me what I have to do next, and I can walk away, do it, and become rich. We don't have a glass ball, that we say, okay, this is what you're going to have to do in order to be successful in the company. It's also very personal to your company and your competency. But I thought, okay, I'll give some food for thought with directions that are going on in the world and that are quite interesting. One is give more than you take. This is the new world. As a company, you need to give more than you take. Not the impression that you give more than you take. Really give a little bit back to the community. This is what the new consumer is demanding, and it's an easy way to connect to them. Secondary, We innovate things to be the best at something, to be better than our competitors. Why should we not innovate to be the only one? Whenever you're the only one, that's where revenue is. And I can bring this back to Taiwan. When Asus came out with the netbook, for a short time, they were the only one. And it was a revenue stream unbelievable. And then, sadly enough, others started coming in and it's another meeting altogether. And it went a bit downhill from there. But in the beginning, they were the only one, and they were very successful. This is more direct, and you're going to get that, you know. All products are going to start talking to each other. Everything is going to talk to everything. And you see it already on the show floor here. You know, Wi-Fi light bulbs. So, you know, you can wirelessly, you know, turn on my light. It makes, well, why? But this is going to happen. Everything is going to talk to everything product-wise. So, in the future, it's not so much going to be about communication for people, not the millions of people that are talking to each other, but the trillions of devices that are going to talk to each other. If you manage that, how they talk and communicate with each other, I guarantee you're going to be very successful for the next 10 years. To end myself on a socially good note, 10% of the population uses 90% of the world resources. That cannot stay like that. Luckily, it's changing a little bit already with what's happening in China and India, but 10% uses everything. That's got to change, and it will change, and that's going to bring opportunity too to come up with new products. So, if I do this right, that was my presentation today. Maybe you have some questions, or maybe not. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, we'll now take